Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're wrapping up Memorial Day weekend here. There's a lot of sweeps this weekend. Let's get into it. In the American League, the Toronto Blue Jays lost 3 of 4 to Detroit. The Baltimore Orioles swept the White Sox as expected. Cleveland swept the Angels. Houston took 2 of 3 from Oakland. Texas lost 2 of 3 to Minnesota. And then Kansas City took 2 of 3 from Tampa. Blake, go ahead and go over the National League.
Yeah, Cincinnati swept the Dodgers. That's pretty surprising. Figured they'd get maybe one, but they ended up taking all three. Pittsburgh takes two or three from Atlanta. St. Louis is ongoing right now. So we'll have to see what happens with that one. Philly lost two or three to Colorado. San Francisco took two from Mets, and Arizona dropped two or three to the Miami Marlins. So, couple surprises in the NL. Why don't you go over the interleague?
Yeah, in the interleague, the Yankees took 2 of 3 in San Diego. They had the big game, game one, where Soto, Judge, and Stanton hit a home run.
Mhm.
Milwaukee and Boston, some tempers flared, but Milwaukee ends up taking 2 of 3 there. And then the Seattle Mariners lost 2 of 3 to the Washington Nationals. So, yeah, a lot of upsets this weekend. Dodgers get swept. Atlanta loses 2 of 3 to Pittsburgh. Arizona lost to Miami. Philly loses to Colorado.
Yeah,
Um, Jays, I guess you can say, losing 3 or 4 to Detroit.
yeah, it's tough, especially today.
I went 7-7. The Cubs and St. Louis series became a two-game series. We're going to count it as a two-gamer.
Yeah,
That's ongoing right now. We both took the Cubs, but St. Louis is up in the ninth as we're speaking. So there's a chance I go 7-8. While Blake went 6-8 right now, and there's a chance he goes 6-9 because we both took the Cubs. So it's a tough week again for us.
yeah, a lot of
Past two
upsets.
weeks, past 2 weeks, lots of upsets. It's been a little crazy. We've had huge weeks where we went, 13, 14 wins in a weekend.
Hmm.
And then we have weeks like this where there's a lot of upsets and, it's hard. It's baseball.
Yep.
Things happen. So let's head off to this weekend's matchup or this week's matchups, I should say. Starting Monday, there's a lot of weird series. There's 4-game series. There's 2-game series. It's going to be quite the week. First up, we have the Boston Red Sox heading into Baltimore to take on the Orioles. It'll be Cooper Criswell versus Cole Irvin, Brian Bayo versus Grayson Rodriguez, and Cutter Crawford versus Corbin Burns. I'm going to go ahead and take the Orioles in this one. They are at home. They have Burns on the mound. Boston just lost in a series to Milwaukee. They've been kind of up and down lately, so I'm going to go ahead and go with the O's.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the O's too. Really good bounce back after getting swept for the first time in a couple years, as expected. One of the best teams in the league, and I expect them to keep rolling. They're at Camden. They slug at Camden, so I'm going to expect them to take this series as well.
Next up, we have the Kansas City Royals heading into Minnesota for a 4-game set. It'll be Alec Marsh versus Joe Ryan, Cole Reagans versus Simon Woods Richardson, Seth Lugo versus Bailey Ober, and Brady Singer versus Chris Paddock. I'm going to go ahead and go with KC in this one. Minnesota has been playing decent ball of late, but Kansas City's just been the more consistent team. It is a 4-game set. Wouldn't be surprised if this one splits, but I am going to go with the Royals.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Royals too. I think the Royals are going to take three or four from this one. I think I love the Royals pitching in this one. They are on the road, and Minnesota is pretty good at home. So, um, yeah, Kansas City will be coming out with a video. Contenders or pretenders for them, so keep an eye out for that. Um, they've had a really good season, and I expect them to just keep rolling here in Minnesota.
Yep. Next up, we have Blake's Toronto Blue Jays heading into Chicago to take on the White Sox. It'll be Chris
Yay.
Bassett versus Nastrini, Kevin Gausman versus Mike Clevenger, and Alek Manoah versus Chris Flexen. I'm gonna go with Toronto really because the White Sox suck, and also their pitching is just a lot better in this series. Alek Manoah's looked pretty good of late. Um, that's where I'm at. Toronto Blue Jays, they've been sucking too, but maybe this is the series that gets them going. I don't know.
The Blue Jays season's on life support. They scored 11 runs today against the Detroit Tigers and lost. So that's where they're at right now. Pretty demoralizing series loss. You had a chance to split and you ended up losing two of three, or sorry, three of four. Um, it's just not good vibes right now. I'm going to take the Jays because they should win this series. but they might find a way to lose this series. That's just the way it's been going lately, man. It's frustrating. Um, I mean the pitching lines up. They should win the series, but the Blue Jays find ways to lose a lot of games, and we'll see what happens. But I'll go with the Jays. I don't know.
Yeah. Missing Crochet, who just shoved it
Yeah,
up their asses last week.
yeah,
So
sure
here we
did.
go. Houston versus Seattle, 4 game set. Framber Valdez versus Bryce Miller. Christian Javier versus Luis Castillo. To be determined versus George Kirby. And to be determined versus Logan Gilbert. I'm going to go with Seattle in this one, mainly because of the pitching staff.
Yeah.
Houston looked like they were starting to get going, and now they've kind of hit a rut. They did take 2 of 3 from Oakland, but it was a series they probably could have swept. Obviously, coming off of some series, with the Angels, which they lost, and I believe the series before that, they had lost that as well. So, with that said, they've been up and down, playing better, but up and down. So I'm gonna go with Seattle, who's also hasn't been playing the best right now,
Mhm.
but the pitching's just it outweighs Houston's at this point.
Yeah, a couple TB determines in that. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those was Justin Verlander. So, I mean, that would maybe even it out a little bit. But I too am gonna go with Seattle's pitching here. You got Castillo, Miller, Kirby, and Gilbert. They're four best starters going in the series. And yeah, I'll go with Seattle.
Yeah. And then next up, we have Oakland versus Tampa Bay. It will be, we don't know the pitching matchups for the most part. It will be to be determined versus Zach Littell, to be determined versus to be determined, and then TBD versus TBD.
Mhm.
At this point, obviously, uh, Tampa Bay should win this series. In my opinion, they're at home, but I'm gonna go with Oakland. I like how they've been playing lately. They've
Yeah.
just been pulling some out of their ass, and I could see them going into Tampa and figuring it out. So I'm going with Oakland in the series.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Oakland too. I mean, I love their chances if they get to the ninth. Did you see Mason Miller against Astros their game one? My God, it's just 102, 102, 102, 85-mile-an-hour slider on the corner. It's just unfair what he's doing right now. He's averaging about 2 strikeouts every appearance. It's just disgusting. We haven't seen closure stuff like this in a while. Yeah, if they get to the eighth, ninth with the lead, I love their chances. I'll go with Oakland here too. I'll go with Oakland here.
Rounding out the American League, we have the New York Yankees heading into Anaheim to take on my Halos. It'll be Nestor Cortez versus Griffin Canning, Luis Hill versus Tyler Anderson, and Carlos Rodon versus Patrick Sandoval. The Angels are on pace to break a record from 85 years ago of having the worst home record in the league in 85 years. They, I believe, are 6
Wow.
and 19 right now. They have all their wins on the road. So with that said, I'm going to go with the Yankees, who are rolling right now. Not feeling good about this at all. The Angels, I mean, for what it's worth, they've lost a lot of one-run games at home too. They're 2 and 8, I believe, at home in one-run games. Um, so they are playing close ones. They just can't finish them. But I'm gonna go with the Yankees.
Damn, that's a surprising stat. 85 years? Oof, that's
Yeah.
wild. Yeah.
The team is not even in the league anymore, by the way.
Yeah,
It has
true. True. I'll
it's
go
the
the
Browns, if
right.
you know who those are.
No, not really. I'll
No.
go the Yankees too. The kind of big three there with Judge is on a heater right now too. Soto's
Yeah.
been hitting a lot of bombs, Stanton too. So yeah, they're rolling too. They got I mean you missed Stroman in this series, but still three pretty good starters you gotta face.
Yep. Heading into the National League, we have the Dodgers heading into New York to take on the Mets. It'll be Gavin Stone versus Tyler Meagle, Tyler Glasnow versus Jose Quintana, and James Paxton versus David Peterson. The Mets have just been losing a ton. They've looked really brutal the past, 15 to 20 games now.
Did you see that
Now they're
Lindor
t
at bat? What was that?
Yeah, I'm unsure what he
Like
said
he
his best chance was taking a pitch. So
3-2 pitch? Like you gotta at least foul that off. Like that was like a strike. That was a strike by a mile. Like I wasn't even borderline.
yeah, he
Yeah.
said that it was his best chance, so he must have not been seeing the ball. But I
Fair
am going
enough.
to go with the Dodgers in this one. But the Dodgers have lost 5 in a row themselves, so they're not playing hot baseball. They just got swept by Cincinnati. But I am going to take them to get on track against the Mets.
Yeah, the Mets are a dumpster fire. There's no beating around the bush. I think they're gonna be a major seller. coming up here right away. I'm gonna go to the Dodgers too. They're gonna be a little pissed off. And you got Glasnow and Paxton going in this series too, which they've been really good.
Yep. Next up, we have the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Cincinnati Reds. It'll be Lance Lynn versus Nick Lodolo, Kyle Gibson versus Andrew Abbott, Matthew Liberatore versus Frankie Montas, and to be determined versus to be determined. I'm going to go ahead and take the Cardinals in this one. I've taken Cincinnati a ton. They've burned me. They did just sweep the Dodgers, but I'm going to take the Cardinals who have been playing better baseball of late and are been scratching back. I don't know if the game's over yet, but they were leading the Cubs before we hopped on this. So I'm gonna go with the Cardinals to take at least two in this series.
Yeah, Cubs won 4-3 final. So Chicago almost came back, but they hung on for
The
that.
Cardinals won 4-3,
Cardinals
right?
won 4-3. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. The Cubs got one in the ninth, but they hung on. I'm gonna go Cincinnati here. I like Lodolo and Montage in this series. Lodolo has been really good. Cincinnati, like you said, riding high, coming off that sweep at home against the Dodgers, and I can see him. I can see him continuing with the series win versus the Cards.
Yep. Next up, we have the Chicago Cubs taking on the Milwaukee Brewers, another four-game set in the NL Central. It'll be Justin Steele versus Robert Gasser, Ben Brown versus to be determined, Shota Imanaga versus Freddie Peralta, and Jameson Taillon versus Bryce Wilson. I am going to go with the Cubs in this series, even though I did want to take Milwaukee. Milwaukee's been the more consistent team. I just like Justin Steele and Imanaga in this series to at least give me two wins. But with that said, I easily could have went with the Brewers. I am going to go with the Cubs though.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Brewers. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a split, but yeah, I'm gonna go with the Brewers here. That Imanaga versus Peralta game, that'd be a really good matchup to watch. Two really good starters. Bryce Wilson's been kind of up and down. Robert Gasser, one of their top prospects from the left side, has been pretty serviceable, I should say, since he's come up. So a couple lefties going there in game one. Should be a good series.
Next up, we have the Washington Nationals heading into Atlanta to take on the Braves. It'll be Mitchell Parker versus Charlie Morton, Jake Irvin versus Max Fried, Mackenzie Gore versus to be determined, and Trevor Williams versus Reynaldo Lopez. Tough news out of the Braves camp. Ronald Acuna is done for the year, torn ACL. This is the second time, I believe.
Yep.
Um, yeah, tough news. Maybe we'll do a video on that at some point, but. Yeah, I am going to go with the Braves in this series. They're the better team with or without Ronald Acuna. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take Atlanta to win this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Atlanta too. Just an unfortunate injury, I think. Just a non-contact injury on the bases. Yeah, like you mentioned, second time. They did win the World Series without Acuna though, so they know what life is without Acuna, but they did have Freddie Freeman at that time when they did win that World Series. So, um, this is good adversity for Atlanta to go through. I mean, it's always tough losing your best player, but I mean, that lineup's a deep lineup. Obviously, it's tough to replace a guy like Acuna in that lineup, but if there's any team that could overcome something like that, it is the Braves.
Next up, with the Phillies heading into San Francisco to take on the Giants, it'll be Taijuan Walker versus Blake Snell, Zach Wheeler versus Mason Black, and Christopher Sanchez versus Kyle Harrison. I'm gonna go ahead and take the Phillies in this one. They did just lose two of three to Colorado. Um, but with that said, they were rolling before that, and Coors is just Coors. I mean, things happen there. So I would suspect the Phillies get on track in San Francisco, so I'm gonna go ahead and take them.
I'm gonna take Philly too. They're one of the best teams. They were doing. I was watching MLB Network. I think it was Friday. They were talking about how they're on pace to finish with a better record than the 2001 Mariners. They were kind of doing a comparison. So they've had a really good stretch here as of late. And I mean they're without Turner too, and Schwarber hasn't really gotten going either. So the fact that they're off to this good a start and their big boys ain't really slugging right now. They're getting good production from Alec Bohm. I'm going to go the Phillies to bounce back here.
Rounding out the National League, we have the Miami Marlins heading into San Diego. It'll be Trevor Rogers versus Michael King, Jesus Luzardo versus Matt Waldron, and Braxton Garrett versus Yu Darvish. I am going to go ahead and take the Padres in this one. Luis Arias gets to face his old team already.
Hmm.
But the Padres are at home, and the Miami Marlins are definitely not the New York Yankees. And the Padres played a pretty good series for the
They
most
did.
part against the Yankees, just fell short. So I think they're going to win this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go San Diego too. San Diego needs to get going here. This is the series you got to sweep, to be honest. I mean, this is you got to beat the teams that you should, and I think they'll take care of business at home.
Heading into the interleague, we have a couple two-game sets. The first one will be the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Detroit Tigers. It'll be Jared Jones versus Tariq Skubal and Paul Skeens versus Jack Flaherty. These pitching matchups are worth watching for sure.
Mhm.
I am going to go ahead and go with Detroit. They did just take 3 or 4 from the Jays. With that said, I would not be surprised if Paul Skeens and Jared Jones shove and we see Pittsburgh winning this series.
Yep.
But with Tariq Skubal in one of them, I feel good about the Tigers at least taking one game
Hmm.
and splitting this for me. So I'm going to take the Tigers.
I'm gonna go Pittsburgh here. Really big fans of Jones and Scooble, and then obviously you got Skeens going in the second one. So, Pittsburgh and Detroit, they're very similar offensively. They're very opportunistic, I should say, inconsistent. They cash, sometimes they don't, and both pitching has been really good. So I'll go Pittsburgh here. Like you said, wouldn't be surprised if this was a 1-1 split.
Next up, we have the Cleveland Guardians heading into Colorado. It'll be Xavier Curry versus Austin Gomber, Tristan McKenzie versus Ryan Feltner, and Logan Allen versus Ty Blach. I'm going to go ahead and take Cleveland. But with that said, like I said, Coors is Coors. Anything can happen there. Both these teams are coming off big series wins. Cleveland just swept the Angels. They're coming in hot. They've been hot all season to this point. So
Hmm.
I'm going to stick with them. But yeah, it's Colorado. Anything can happen. But I am going to go with Cleveland.
I'm gonna go the Rockies here. They're coming off of emotional series win against the Phillies. They're at home. It's gonna be tough going up against McKenzie there, but yeah, I hope they can just score some runs for me in course. So yeah, bold pick, but I'll go Colorado.
And rounding out the interleague, we have the Texas Rangers taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. It'll be Brandon Pfaadt versus Dane Dunning and Ryan Nelson versus to be determined. Both of these teams have been struggling thus far. I am going to go ahead and take Texas, though. I think this is a series they have to at least split. They're under 500 right now. They've been playing brutal baseball. Just lost another series to Minnesota. Well, the D-backs just lost to Miami. So I am going to take Texas. They need this. It's a World Series rematch.
Mhm.
Um, but with that said, they beat them in the World Series, so I'm gonna take them in the series right here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Arizona here. These two gamers are tricky to predict because you need to get both of them to get the win. Um, it'd be interesting to see who goes in that second game for the Rangers. I'm gonna go Arizona here. They need to get going, man. It's getting now or never time for these guys. They got to get going.
Yep. That's going to do it for this one. In review, I have Baltimore, Kansas City, Toronto, Seattle, Oakland, New York, LA, St. Louis, Chicago, Atlanta, Philly, San Diego, Detroit, Cleveland, and Texas. Blake has Baltimore, Kansas City, Toronto, Seattle, Oakland, New York, LA, Cincinnati, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Philly, San Diego, Pittsburgh, Colorado, and Arizona. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. As always, we appreciate you guys for listening and watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Later.